Here at Gettysburg in July 1863, 23,000 Union soldiers became casualties in battle for a cause that was for them yet undefined. Today, some 4 sad months after the battle, President Abraham Lincoln has been invited to formally dedicate these grounds. A procession from Baltimore Street to the cemetery began about 10 o'clock this morning. President Lincoln, riding horseback, was in the parade with cabinet officials, judges of the Supreme Court, high military officers, governors, commissioners, the Vice President, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, members of Congress, and many local groups. A crowd of about 10,000 has gathered in the dedication area. Dignitaries, soldiers, and war-weary citizens are waiting for President Lincoln's remarks. Was all of the bloodshed necessary? Old Hundred was played by the Marine Band, and the Honorable Edward Everett of Massachusetts delivered a 2-hour message on the purposes of the war and gave tribute to those who died on the battlefield. President Lincoln has just risen to address the audience.
77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We've come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. it is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
In 2 minutes, Mr. Lincoln summed up for all time the meaning of the soldier's sacrifice, the war, and the nation itself. The theme of the Gettysburg Address was not entirely new. President Lincoln was aware of Daniel Webster's statement in 1830 that the origin of our government and the source of its power is the people's constitution, the people's government, made for the people, made by the people, and answerable to the people. The Gettysburg Address stands today as the nearly poetical summation of American ideals as laid down by the founders of the country, and as a reminder to all Americans that sacrifice is sometimes required to retain these ideals. Abraham Lincoln delivered to the nation at Gettysburg renewal, rededication, and definition to the effort that would ensure for all mankind a haven for those wishing equality and freedom.